12 days. That's all it took Alexandra Eala to go from a qualifying round no-name to the most talked-about player in women's tennis. 12 days, one maiden title, one legendary revenge win, and then, in the span of 68 minutes, all of it came crashing back down to earth. This isn't a story about a loss. This is a story about what happens the moment a fairy tale meets a buzzsaw named Amanda Anisimova. And it's about the answer Eala gave afterward. An answer so calm, so mature, so unexpectedly wise, that it's still being talked about days later. Welcome back to Ace Rally Brief. Let's get into it. Rewind 3 weeks. Nobody outside hardcore tennis circles could have picked Alexandra Eala out of a lineup. Then Washington happened. At the Mubadala DC Open, the Filipina teenager went on an absolute rampage, knocking off major names on the way to her first ever WTA singles title, capped off by a win over world number 3 Jessica Pegula in the final. Not a fluke, not a lucky bracket, a statement. Toronto came next, and while her run there ended at the hands of Olympic champion Belinda Bencic, the message had already landed. This kid isn't just here to make up the numbers. Then came Cincinnati, and the moment the internet actually started paying attention. Eala walked into the second round to face Elena Gabriela Ruse, the same player who had shattered her at US Open qualifying 2 years earlier. This wasn't just a tennis match. This was unfinished business. And Elena didn't just win it. She obliterated it, racing out to a 6-1, 3-0 lead before Ruse was forced to retire with an injury. Old ghost, exorcised. Career high ranking of world number 18, locked in. For a few electric days, it felt like nothing could touch her. Then the draw handed her Amanda Anisimova. If you don't know the name, here's the 2-second version. Former world number 3, 2-time Grand Slam finalist, a player who had just finished dismantling her Cincinnati opponent 6-6-3 like it was a practice set. Anisimova doesn't play tennis so much as she detonates it. First strike serves, ground strokes with venom on them, and almost zero interest in letting a rally breathe. Before the match, Anisimova was asked about facing a player she'd never shared a court with. Her answer was polite, almost casual. She talked about Eala's incredible season, said she was looking forward to it. It sounded like respect. It played out like a warning, because when the two players walked out at the Lindner Family Tennis Center, one thing was immediately obvious. This was not going to be Eala's kind of fight. Picture the scene. Thousands of Filipino fans packed into the stands, flags waving, chants rolling down every time Eala touched the ball. It was the same wall of noise that had followed her out of Toronto and into Cincinnati, the Eala effect, as it's been nicknamed. And Anisimova, to her credit, said beforehand she didn't mind being the away player in her own match. She said she'd feed off the energy instead of fighting it. She did exactly that. Eala came out swinging, trying to impose her game the way she had all tournament, using her deceptive lefty serve and aggressive baseline positioning to keep opponents guessing. It's a game plan built on rhythm and misdirection. Anisimova's response was brutally simple. Take the ball early, take it hard. Don't let a rhythm ever form. It worked. Point by point, Eala got shoved further and further behind the baseline, chasing a match that had already sprinted away from her. Straight sets. Clinical. The kind of scoreline that doesn't need much analysis. Anisimova was simply the better, more experienced player on the day. When the last point landed, the stadium, so loud minutes earlier, went quiet. The revenge tour, the underdog story, the unbeaten momentum, all of it stopped at once. Here's where the story actually gets interesting, because after a loss like that, you'd expect frustration, excuses about the schedule, the crowd noise working against her, the quick turnaround from 3 brutal weeks of tennis. Nobody would have blamed her. Instead, Eala walked into her press conference and did something rare for a 20-year-old who just had her breakout run stopped cold. She took it on the chin, and she took it with class. She didn't dodge questions about what went wrong. She talked openly about Anisimova's power, about her own execution, about the gap in big match experience. But she never framed it as a disaster. Earlier in the tournament, she'd already laid out her own personal measuring stick for success. It was never really about the result. It was about whether she brought her best level to the court. A tough loss in a well-played match, by her own logic, still counts as a good week. That mindset didn't waver even after getting run over by a former top 3 player on a big stage. No blame game, no spiral, just a clear-eyed read on what happened and what needs to improve. Let's zoom out for a second, because it's easy to treat a loss like this as a step backward. It isn't. Every player who's ever been called great has a version of this match on their resume, the moment a rising talent runs into someone who's already been where they're trying to go. It happened to Federer. It happened to Serena. It happened to Djokovic. The separator was never whether they lost. It was what they did with it. Eala now has a very specific data point she didn't have before. Exactly what it feels like to be outgunned by a player operating at Grand Slam finalist intensity, in front of a crowd that was fully behind her, with real expectations on her shoulders for the first time in her career. That's information. That's fuel. And practically speaking, her season doesn't stop here. The US Open is next, the same tournament where, just last year, she became the first Filipina to win a Grand Slam main draw match. She's not walking into New York as a surprise anymore. She's walking in as a target, and this Cincinnati loss might be exactly the reset she needed before that stage. So no, this isn't the end of the revenge tour. It's the next chapter of it. Alexandra Eala didn't get run out of Cincinnati in disgrace. She got a very expensive, very public lesson from one of the most dangerous ball strikers on tour, and she responded like someone who already understands the difference between a bad week and a hard week. The fans aren't going anywhere. The flags will be back out at the US Open, and somewhere down the line, you can bet Anisimova's name gets added to the list of players Eala is determined to beat next time around. This is Ace Rally Brief. We'll see you at the next one.